Afternoon, we're having a hearing to review the President's fiscal year 2016 budget request for the Department of Energy. Senator Feinstein and I will each have an opening statement. I'll then recognize each senator for up to 5 minutes for an opening statement, alternating between the majority and the minority. And then we'll turn to Secretary Moniz. Secretary Orr is here to answer questions relating to fusion science, not because Secretary Moniz doesn't know anything about it, but because he does. So under our brilliant rules, we don't get to ask him. I'm going to make one adjustment if it's necessary. Senator Feinstein has an unavoidable conflict at about 3:15, and I want to make sure that she as well as I get to hear Secretary Moniz's testimony, but that she gets to make her opening statement and to ask her questions. So I may go out of order a little bit with the senators, and I'm sure Senator Murray will be fine with. What am I fine with? Well, Senator, I want to make Senator Feinstein has to leave at 3:15, and I want to give her a little. I want to make sure she gets a chance to ask her questions before she leaves. Our witnesses today include Dr. Moniz and Dr. Orr. We're here today to review the President's fiscal year 2016 budget request for the Department of Energy, an agency with 3 critical missions: nuclear security, science and energy, and environmental management. This is the subcommittee's 4th and final hearing this year on the President's budget request, and I look forward to hearing what the Secretary has to say. The Department's budget request for 2016 is about $30.5 billion. This is an increase of about $2.5 billion over the amount Congress appropriated last year. Governing is about setting priorities, and given our fiscal constraints, especially on non-defense spending, we're going to have to make some tough decisions this year to make sure the highest priorities are funded. The President's entire discretionary budget request this year exceeds the Budget Control Act spending caps by about $74 billion. This is not realistic. In fact, if we were to fully fund just the Department of Energy's budget request of $30.5 billion, our subcommittee would need almost the entire increase available, about $3 billion, in both defense and non-defense for fiscal year 2016 under the Budget Control Act spending caps. The real driver of our federal debt is out-of-control mandatory spending on entitlement programs. I plan to work with our Republican majority, and I hope the President and Senate Democrats who share the same concerns to make the tough choices so we can pass a real plan to fix the long-term debt while supporting other important priorities like national defense and national labs and medical research. That's why we're holding this hearing, to give Secretary an opportunity to talk about the Department of Energy's most urgent priorities, so Senator Feinstein and I and the other committee members can begin to put together our appropriations bill over the next several weeks. I'm going to focus my attention on 4 areas. Number 1, doubling basic energy research. 2, reducing federal spending on mature technologies. 3, leading the world in advanced scientific computing. And 4, solving the stalemate over what to do with our country's nuclear waste. Just a few comments about each of those areas. I believe doubling basic energy research is one of the most important things we can do. It's hard to think of any important technological advance in the sciences, in physics and biology in any event, since World War II that hasn't involved at least some form of government-sponsored research, whether it's the development of unconventional gas or the work being done to develop small modular reactors. That's why it's so important to double the more than $5 billion the U.S. Department of Energy spends on basic energy research. That was the goal set out in the America Competes legislation, which passed under President Bush with bipartisan support. That grew out of the Rising Above the Gathering Storm report. The goal was to double the federal government's investment in basic research. 2 of the ways we've increased investment in basic research are, 1, our national lab system, and 2, ARPA-E, which Congress created as part of America Competes. The Office of Sciences manages 10 of the 17 Department of Energy national laboratories. They're critical to our national competitiveness, our way of life. They're home to the world's largest collection of scientific user facilities operated by a single organization, used by more than 31,000 researchers each year. Since 2009, Congress has provided about $1 billion in appropriations for ARPA-E, which has resulted in more than 400 projects. ARPA-E is successful because it stops funding projects that don't meet their research milestones, and funding is limited to 5 years. The next priority is federal spending on mature technologies. Washington has a bad habit of picking winners and losers and an addiction to wasteful subsidies, and we need to end those policies. The most conspicuous example of this is the wasteful wind subsidy, which costs taxpayers about $6 billion every year we extend it, enough to double basic energy research at the Department of Energy. President Obama's former Energy Secretary, Stephen Chu, said in 2011 that wind energy is a mature technology. There's a place for limited short-term subsidies to jumpstart technologies, and I've supported some of those. But it's long past time for wind to stand on its own in the market. The subsidy for big wind has been renewed 9 times since 1992. It's so generous that wind producers can literally give their electricity away in some markets and still make a profit. That's called negative pricing, and it's distorting the market and undercutting other forms of clean, reliable energy such as nuclear power. Third area is leading the world in advanced scientific computing. I got involved with supercomputing with Senator Bingaman when I first became a senator. At his direction, I flew to Japan to see why they were first in the world and we weren't. I'm glad to say that we've been able to work with the Obama administration over the last several years. We see eye to eye on the importance of these fast supercomputers, and I'm glad that because of a recent announcement that the Secretary was able to make and the budget requests that he includes, that we will be able to say that the world's fastest supercomputer would be again in the United States by 2017. Finally, I'd like to discuss, and I'll save most of my comments for questions, the 25-year-old stalemate about what we do about used fuel from nuclear reactors. I want to make sure we have a strong future in this country for nuclear power. It's essential, therefore, we have a permanent place to put used nuclear fuel. The Federal Government is responsible for disposing of that. It's failed in its responsibility, even though the ratepayers have deposited billions to pay for it. The government's failure to follow the law not only imperils the future of nuclear power, it also results in wasting billions of hard-earned taxpayer dollars. To help solve this stalemate, Senator Feinstein and I will again include a pilot program for nuclear waste storage in the Energy and Water Appropriations bill, as we have for the past 3 years when she was the chairman. We have also introduced legislation yesterday with Senator Murkowski and Cantwell to create both temporary and permanent storage sites for nuclear waste. The new sites we're seeking to establish would not take the place of Yucca Mountain. We have more than enough used fuel to fill Yucca Mountain, but rather would complement it. Our legislation is consistent with the President's Blue Ribbon Commission on America's Nuclear Future. The Secretary served on that commission. I should note that Federal law designates one repository for our country's used nuclear fuel, Yucca Mountain. After years of delay, Yucca Mountain can and should be part of the solution to our nuclear waste stalemate. The Regulatory Commission, Nuclear Regulatory Commission, recently completed the safety evaluation report that said that Yucca met all of the safety requirements through the period of geologic stability, unquote. The Commission and the Environmental Protection Agency defined that period as 1 million years. So to continue to oppose Yucca Mountain because of radiation concerns is to ignore science as well as the law. Secretary Moniz had an important announcement to make yesterday on used nuclear fuel. I appreciate, and I know Senator Feinstein appreciates, his putting a priority on this subject. We're going to need your help, Mr. Secretary, to set priorities and make tough funding decisions for the Department this year. With that, I would recognize Senator Feinstein for an opening statement.
Thank you.